You've been sanctioned by Russia today. Do you have any idea why?
I've just heard of it as I've come on air now.
Really, that's the first time?
Just before I came into the studio. I mean, we stand resolutely behind the Ukrainian people, and we will do whatever it takes to maintain Britain's national interest. I mean, the advice already from the Foreign Office was not to travel to Russia. And as I say, you know, we've seen the appalling consequences of Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine. The Ukrainian people and their government have our full backing. That was the case when we were in opposition. It's, you know, there has been cross-party support for that, and long may that continue.
So what's your message to Putin tonight then?
Well, I wasn't planning a holiday to Moscow anyway, so I'm not sure it's any great loss. But my message is that...
Scratch that one off the calendar then.
Yeah, I mean, my message is that, you know, we stand behind the Ukrainian people. That is the long-standing position of our country. I mean, we've seen the amazing generosity of people across our country in welcoming Ukrainian refugees to our shores. I think, that approach is the approach that we have taken from government, continuing the approach of the previous government, and that's exactly as it should be.
Are you concerned about, there's been a lot of talk about, a kind of hybrid war with Russia, like a kind of disruptive war, if you like, whether it's cyber attacks, obviously disinformation against public figures, including people like yourself. Is that something that's a concern? I
think it is a concern, and we saw, what happened on the streets in Salisbury a number of years ago too. So this is a long-standing challenge, but we will not allow ourselves to be distracted from the really important responsibilities that we have as a government to maintain Britain's national interest, but also the responsibilities that we owe to European security, and that includes our support for the Ukrainian government and the Ukrainian people.
OK. Now let's talk about your announcement today. We spend more currently on sickness benefits than we do on schools. Is that a problem?
I think the increase that we've seen in people who are economically inactive, including alongside that the increase in the benefits bill, although they're not the same thing because some of those people will not be receiving social security support, is a big problem. We're an outlier as a country in that other countries have recovered post-pandemic in a way that we haven't. We've still got more people out of work, economically inactive, than was the case before, and that's particularly acute for our young people. 1 in 8 young people, almost 1 million, who are not earning or learning. And the plans that we're setting out today, including around a youth guarantee, is about making sure that we get that support in place as quickly as we can, because we know where there is that failure, where we don't support our young people at the earliest possible point, it is just that bit harder to then get back into employment or training. And I've heard directly from lots of young people who desperately want that support, who can find themselves isolated sometimes because of mental health issues, and because perhaps they haven't left school with the qualifications that they need to get on. So there's a challenge in the school system too that I'm seeking to address, but alongside that, what more we can do as a country to make sure that everyone has the chance to play their full contribution. You're
talking a lot about the support that people need, particularly young people, and I don't think anyone would disagree with that. I guess for some people there's also a fairness argument that, they work hard, don't get paid much money, but they work an awful lot of hours, and then they see other people getting money from the state. Do you think there are some people claiming benefits who shouldn't be?
There'll always be a small minority of people who seek to game the system. That's always been the case under any government. But I think what we're talking about here is actually a significant number of people who, for reasons of physical health, mental ill health, and we've got big NHS waiting lists that is driving some of this inactivity, but also our young people who desperately want the chance to get back into work, to be in employment or training. And of course, conditionality within the system is important. It's important that if people are receiving support, then they're doing what's asked of them. I think it's also important for kind of public consent and understanding and support for that system, so that people don't feel that that there are people taking advantage. But the challenge, the scale of what we're facing at the moment goes way beyond that, and this is a really serious and endemic problem. And what we're setting out today in the Get Britain Working white paper is what more we as a government need to do to support people who are out of work and to support young people who are not earning or learning.
Another big priority in the white paper is effectively getting employers to do more as well. You say you want support for employers to recruit, retain and develop staff. But businesses have said that the rise in employers' national insurance contributions will make it harder to both retain and recruit staff. So you're effectively asking businesses to take a chance on people, right, who may have been out of the workforce for an awful long time, but you're making it more expensive for them to do so.
I hear what business have to say on this, and the Chancellor yesterday at the CBI set out the tough choices that we've had to make as a government. What she was also clear about is that whilst she's heard the feedback from business, what we're not hearing is how else we can approach this, what the alternative is. None of us wanted to be in a position of having to increase taxes in the way that we did. But the situation that we inherited with the economy has made us have to deal with some really tough choices.
That's your job, isn't it, to work out, it's not the businesses aren't going to tell you, oh, just cut defence spending or something, are they? Or scrap fuel duty. That's your decision as a government. Their job is to say, this is the impact it's having on ours, and they're saying it's going to be harder to recruit and retain staff.
Of course, they will argue their case. What businesses also need is a healthy workforce, a well-educated workforce, and in order to do that, we have to invest in our public services. We're talking about the big numbers of people who are economically inactive, who are not in work. And part of that is we've got far too many people on NHS waiting lists, waiting for operations, for surgeries, for appointments. So the investment that came through the budget for the NHS is crucial. Similarly for skills. We've got a big skills challenge as a country. It's time that we took skills more seriously. And what we've been able to do through the budget is to protect key areas of education spending, to do more to support business in areas like apprenticeship levy reform that they've been calling for, that we will bring in as a growth and skills levy so that they've got more flexibility as businesses to train the workforce, adult workers too, yes, our young people, but we've got a big skills challenge as a country where we've got far too many people who lack the skills they need to access work.
Do you accept another big challenge, another big barrier to people going into work is childcare?
I do. It is a barrier. And, I'm with the Work and Pensions Secretary. I'm co-chairing the Child Poverty Task Force. And as a part of that, I've been speaking with lots of parents when I'm out and about speaking to providers too. They tell me that, yes, absolutely, childcare is a barrier. And, whilst we are rolling out childcare entitlements, we know that there are still big differences in different parts of the country. And that's why we're setting out plans to deliver more nurseries within primary schools where that space is opening up, to create places where the market has failed to do so.
Because some you've spoken about childcare in early years for an awfully long time, and lots of childcare providers are probably very excited, frankly, when you came in as Education Secretary. And yet many of them are now saying that they are really, really worried after the budget because of some of the impact on that, the rise in the minimum wage. And of course, they're going to have to pay these employers' national insurance contributions. I spoke to Zoe Raven a few weeks ago, who runs a nursery in Grimsby. She told me a budget will 100% drive some nurseries to close. Juna Sullivan of Leaf Nurseries, an amazing kind of group of social enterprise nurseries, said, I'm not sure how this has happened. I can't imagine a government that wants to be fair to working people intended to throw this curveball. Are you looking again at how the budget impacts nurseries?
I am looking carefully at this and I hear the concerns that they raise. And I understand the specific issue there, but alongside that, I would say we're putting, by next September, with the further rollout of childcare expansion, that'll be £8 billion we're investing. That's a significant sum of money. I do understand the pressures that are there overall. I am determined to reform the system. What we've inherited in terms of the rollout, we've had to fund, and I'm committed to making it work. But if you said to me, is this entirely how you would deliver a system where you to start it from scratch? Then no, it would not be. And there are big challenges around workforce. Yes, in terms of what providers, as the providers that you've just described, would set out, but also about training, around support for staff, and around standards in early years provision. I want to much more closely align schools provision with early years provision.
So I get a sense that, we talked earlier about the barriers to work, that you're someone who gets this, partly because of your background. I was reading an interview that you gave with The Mirror a while ago, speaking about how your mum didn't go back to work full-time until you started school because there was no childcare available. This is clearly a big reason why a lot of people are economically inactive.
It is a big reason, and I'm looking carefully at the reform that we need across the system to break down those barriers, to make it easier for parents to go back to work, especially mothers. It's often mothers who see that shortfall or end up in, not quite in the job that they would like, or turning down promotion opportunities or not progressing in their careers because of childcare barriers. And it's especially a problem for people that are that bit further away from getting back to work or who are facing other challenges in their lives. And as part of the Child Poverty Task Force, I've also heard from mothers in particular who, as well as all of that, are dealing with issues around housing, around support for older children who might have special educational needs. There is a really big issue around family support. Childcare and early years entitlements, and that really crucial education is a part of it. But what I'm also determined to deliver is more family help and early help. So the plans that I was setting out last week around children's social care is a big part of that too. We've got to move the system, yes, around early education, but also about investing more upfront to support families. At the moment, we are spending an awful lot of money as a country on crisis intervention when things have gone seriously wrong. And the reforms I've set out last week in Parliament around children's social care are precisely around that.